check that out. Looks like it's got a picture of a tiger. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Just yesterday, I met up with Jerry to do some door knocking in my area because we've had a lot of rain and the temps have been mild lately. So we went out to do some door knocking and we were able to get into a permission that we both wanted to hunt for quite a long time. It was a house with an awesome stone wall around it that I thought was maybe from around the mid to possibly early 1800s. I was thinking maybe like 1840s on it. Here, the original structure was actually built in the late 1700s and it was just added on to extensively. So it's one of the very few standing structures in my area from the 1700s still around. So we were able to look around. Unfortunately, they didn't own all the adjoining farm fields, so we were just able to stay around the yard and the barns itself, and there was a lot of ground shifting over the years, as you can imagine, at these old farm properties. But we got into some patches where there was some really awesome stuff, and I think you're all going to enjoy the video. I wasn't able to show much of this permission due to the privacy of the homeowners. I have to be more careful on rural properties for various reasons. So unfortunately, I'm not able to show too many shots of the property. But also, I will say, this video is just a part one because after spending about 2 hours there, we did move on to another location, and for the whole entire day as a whole, it was literally my best silver hunt for over 2 years. It was absolutely phenomenal. So stay tuned for part two, but I hope you enjoy this one as well. So a second ago, really deep, I just dug this aluminum lid right here. It's probably mid-1900s trash. I knew it sounded like a good deep target. I knew it was a little bit bigger than a Morgan dollar. So I dug that out. And my next signal is the first really good find from this property. It is actually a flat button. So at the very latest, this is going to date to the mid-1900s, most likely 1830s or older. So that's a sweet find. The shank's busted off of it. There's probably not a design on it. There could be, but I'll clean it up later. But an old flat button. Sweet. All right, Jerry right in that hole right there. He got a wheat penny from the 50s a minute ago. And he just got a buffalo nickel. It's got a date on it. It's 1935, it looks like. So sweet. We're gonna keep looking. There's stuff in here. All right, very next signal for me. It was a very sketchy tone, kind of bounced between nickel and a little bit higher, like pull tab, coming in between like 58 and 62 on the T2. Went down about 3 inches, and I wasn't expecting to see this, but it's actually a war nickel, and I can tell because I can see the mint mark above the Monticello there. I think it's a P. It's really really dirty, but see, as I wipe it there, you can see how the silver color's coming through a little bit. But yeah, it is a war nickel. Pretty cool. All right, guys, a second ago, right here, I just dug this old thing. Sounded good, and I had a solid signal here. I pulled these 2 pennies out of the hole 3 inches down. They're older memorials, a 1962 and a 1964, and I still had a signal in the hole, and I knew one of the signals sounded higher. And there's a silver down in here as well, so this is probably going to be from the 50s or early 60s. It's a silver rosy. It is 1952, it looks like. But a nice little coin spill dropped in the 1960s. Nice that there was a little bit of silver in it. While I have the camera going live, I'll test it again with the pinpointer. And I think that was it, but 2 old memorials and a silver rosy in the same hole. And the newest coin was 1964, so dropped right around the silver cutoff time. I had a deep signal here. I'm gonna finish live just in case it's something good. It was faint. I knew it was gonna be shallow trash or something deep. Oh, I think that's just a nail. Bummer, hopefully that wasn't the signal. I think it was. Oh well, it happens. All right, we knew one was coming. Jerry got an Indian head penny close to the surface right by this pine tree right here. Soil's rough in this area, so the coins probably aren't going to be in great shape, but 1897. So we broke into the first 1800s coin. Now let's try to get a coin the age of that flat button I found.
Yeah, yes, that would work.
Sweet
a bust dime or something.
Sweet find, Jerry.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, this was pretty funny. I dug right next to one of Jerry's plugs. It's like right here. I had a super deep signal, and I went down at least a good 10 inches, and I got a really old buckle here. It looks like a D buckle, but it could be an 1800s one. Still got iron attached to the back. Just has a much older look than the ones that I normally find at the 1900s homes. So it's a nice replica. I'll clean it up later. Take a good look at this now because I forgot to show it in the brief recap at the end of the video. But it's a very old brass D buckle. You can see the iron pin or tongue is completely rusted. I'm pretty sure this is from the 1800s. It looks a lot older than the varieties I usually find. And it was very, very deep. So I already filled most of the hole back in there, but about 7 inches down, I got the end of what looks to be a really old spoon bowl. It's abnormally pointy. That looks like a very old one. I bet that one is 1800s. That's a cool find. I like it. Okay, we're looking in the front of the property out by the road. I'll show you the little piece of this amazing stone wall here. The original part of the house was built in the 1700s. There's a path that leads down through here that has gravel, and we think it's where the old driveway used to be because it's gravel that is now grown over. And there was a couple pennies from like the 70s that came out of here, along with Jerry found a D buckle down under the driveway. And I just found an old Ford key. I don't know if that's from around the 1960s, give or take, but makes sense to find it here. I tried to come out of the wind to film this about 5 yards away from me. Jerry just dug this up, and it is an eagle cuff button from the American Civil War. At least I think so. I got to double check it later, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Unfortunately, it's damaged right in the middle. The shank's folded over, but right there, I think that's an eagle cuff button. That's an amazing find. I just figured I'd show this because it's funny. When you're hunting the older properties, you just think everything's going to be super old. But about 2 inches down there, I just got a last year issue wheat penny, 1958. So at least it's not a 59 memorial. Okay, I got a faint signal here that kind of sounded like in the Indian head range, but there must be some iron in the hole because it was chopping out. It's a pretty old button. The shank's busted off. It looks like a two-piece, but it looks like it's gilted. You can definitely see some gold specks down in there, and it does have some kind of really nice ornate pattern on it. So I'll have to dry brush that one later. I'm not going to do it right at the moment, but I don't think that's any newer than the turn of the century. Around 1900, it could potentially be older as well. It's a nice relic anyway. Here's a look at the button cleaned up. From my experience, this style button tends to be from around the mid-1800s. You can see the floral pattern consists of basically just 6 little circles with a circle in the middle, and that sort of constitutes the center of the flower, and then the petals protrude outward. That was a very common design in the 1800s leading up to around the Victorian period, or at least so I've seen. This one you can still see a little bit of the gold on there. There's not much of it left, but I'm happy to pull this from that historic property. It's a neat little civilian button. So on the very back of the property here, we got this little interesting outbuilding. Didn't get any information on this one from the homeowner, but it almost looks like a little old post office or something. It's quite cool. Back here by the barn, naturally there's a lot of iron and farm trash back here. We've been working through it. I found this little buckle here, still with some leather attached. It's like some sort of pot metal. It's not super old, probably mid-1900s. And a second ago, I got this very peculiar piece of lead. Yes, it is solid lead. It's got 2 little holes in the top. And I don't know if that's some sort of weight or what, but it's quite old. I apologize for any wind noise. I don't know what this is. I just had a big signal right here. Check that out. Looks like it's got a picture of a tiger on the inside of it. That's insane. So here it is, one of the most interesting and potentially rare finds I've ever made metal detecting. I will insert some still photos of this because it's a little bit easier to see with the flash on my camera. So I did post this on some of the online forums just to see what people were saying, and a few people suggested that it could be the decoration off of an old bicycle bell, which I didn't think so, because generally the bicycle bells have a concave back so that they can wrap around the bell. So I wasn't thinking that, even though it was a good suggestion. My first impression was that it was a bridle rosette for on a horse, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I researched it a little bit, and this domed glass seems to date back to around the Victorian era. Not saying that's necessarily when this is from, excuse me, but it was very popular back in the Victorian days. So I'm not 100% certain on the age of it, if it's Victorian period or if it's closer to the mid-1900s, but regardless, I have not been able to find a single photograph or picture of this on the internet at all. Searching on eBay, searching on past sold listings, and looking on Google Images. But I know my subscribers are a lot better at doing research than I am, and someone is always able to get into the nooks and the crannies of the web and pull some information that I wasn't able to. So if anybody can find any information on this, I would really like to know. I'm not 100% certain, but at first I thought this was an early attempt at being a holographic image. You can tell there's multiple layers down in there that are deteriorating away, and also the domed glass makes it look like when you change it in different angles that the tiger is actually moving or kind of getting bigger. I did find a holographic ring one time in the past, one that dated back, I believe, to the 1950s or early 60s, where when you moved it in the light it showed somebody kicking a football. It was one of the earliest designs of having a hologram, but I'm pretty sure this is a horse bridle rosette. You can see where it would have mounted on the reverse. Now normally on the bridle rosettes it was a bar going across, but there are also many different types of varieties, and on some of them people even turn them into brooches. They would solder the back off, and then they would put a pin on there. So who knows? This is actually one of my favorite finds I've ever made metal detecting, just because it's so unique. So here's a brief look at the best finds overall from the historic property that we had the opportunity to hunt. Found a few modern coins. Found that mid-1960s coin spill. The beautiful 35% silver war nickel. I found 2 wheat pennies, a 1958, and this one I had to use a toothpick on because it had a major layer of crust on it. Turns out it's a 1912 Philadelphia, which is actually a decent coin, but in that condition it really wouldn't have any value. I ended up with one early 1800s flat button that unfortunately was in a part of the yard that was excavated, and it is in very poor condition. We got that nice floral pattern button. Of course, you can't forget the tiger. Absolutely amazing find there. Super happy to find that. Just some sort of handle. We got the Ford key. I found that exact same key many times before around the old houses. I found a couple spoon bowls on opposite ends of the property, but it appears after cleaning them up, they look like the exact same kind. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one with a complete stem to be able to date it, but those are probably around turn of the century, give or take a little bit, but very old spoon bowls. When we went to the back by the barn, it was mostly gravel from an old driveway, and a lot of it was grown in, but I was able to find some relics in and around the barn behind the house. Got an old iron horse tack buckle. A buckle that's not quite as old, probably mid-1900s, still has some of the leather attached to it. Got that really odd lead piece that has the hole passing through it, so I'm not sure if that was some type of weight. If somebody knows, please let me know. And then I got the corner piece of a license plate that looks like it's been cut. Number 22. So that was my finds. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.